As journalists and television hosts, scripts are a lifeline. Each newscast, each story, it all revolves around a script.
But now it's time to go unscripted. That means we're not just going off script, we're throwing out the script altogether.
Each week, we're joined by fellow Farm Journal hosts and editors to peel back the layers on stories we've shared throughout the week.
Unscripted. It's real, it's raw, it's entertaining, and it's your chance to meet the personalities behind the personalities. I'm Tyne Morgan.
And I'm Clint Griffiths. Welcome to Unscripted.
Oh, Tyne, here we are.
Good Friday. I mean, do we have a treat for everyone this week? But before we get into this, do you like my new digs?
I do like your new digs. So fancy.
Yeah, we are in the new offices in Kansas City, and I cannot wait to show you guys. We're getting a new podcast space. I'm telling you, there's so much natural light here. We are excited, but we're in the new Farm Journal corporate offices in Kansas City.
It looks great. It looks really nice. I'm in my office here that I sit in all the time.
In South Bend, and wonderful. It's sunny South Bend.
Sunny South Bend. We've got 3 days of sunshine in 2025, so we're looking forward to the next one, probably in a couple of months.
You know, I miss a lot about South Bend. I miss being in the office with all of you. I miss the people. I don't miss how cold and cloudy it always was. In fact, Matt Mormon, he's one of our videographers that shoots a lot with me. He was actually in South Bend last week, and I called him and I said, "Hey, Matt, just checking on you. How you doing?" He goes, "Tyne, it is so cold here." And it was like 71 in Kansas City, and he goes, "No, it's snowing here in South Bend." So I don't miss that. There's a lot I miss, but I don't miss the weather.
My kids playing baseball in the spring, and everyone's like, "Oh, spring baseball, it's so great." I'm like, "Well, yeah, I'm still wearing long johns and 3 layers to go to every game. I'm waiting for it to top 65."
The kind you wear, not the kind you eat. I
put a few of those on.
Because I love a good long john.
Put a few of those on, Tyne.
All right. Well, this week we have a treat. You know, it's Easter weekend, Clinton. And so I can think of one of my favorite authors, journalists who, every time you read one of their stories, it's like an Easter egg hunt. Because
he's like the Rory McIlroy of farm writing, is what I would say.
I love that. I love that. When I read his stories, every paragraph, like I feel like I've found the golden egg. And every story takes you down a rabbit hole, Clinton.
That's exactly right. And just so you know, once in a while you get lost in there.
You do get lost.
You can find yourself 20 minutes later, like, what in the world? Is this really happening? But that's what he does.
It takes me like 30 minutes to read one of his stories. And I always
Mostly because I got to look up all the words.
Well, it is. I mean, who else would we have on Easter weekend? It is story time with Chris Bennett.
Story time with Chris Bennett. That's right. Chris, you do like a good Easter ham. And if I'm talking about that, I mean a hog hunt in, Arkansas or Georgia. That's what I mean.
Hey, great to be here with y'all. And that rabbit hole is more like maybe a cesspit, something like that. And I'm doing great, y'all. Glad to be here. I had my Botox weekly treatment already. I'm good to go.
You're looking good. You're looking fresh and clean, Chris. I just want you to know you're looking fresh and clean. I didn't even know they did that Botox down in your part of Mississippi. Anyway, Clinton, you said that you said ham.
Yes.
I actually want to throw up right now. You would never eat a wild hog. That's disgusting.
Some people do.
They
eat them. Chris, come on.
Chris,
me up here.
They don't, right? They don't eat. They do not.
They're a delicacy in some places.
I can't talk about the potential diseases and so on, but I assure you that backstrap, it tastes the same as pork. Absolutely no difference to me, except maybe it's a little bit more enticing to eat because it's wild, it came from a wild pig. But yeah, it just cooks up the same. Absolutely.
That's disgusting.
Well, don't knock it till you've tried it, Tyne.
I'm knocking it. I'm knocking it, and I'm not trying it. That is sick, Chris.
Hey, there's some of those Missouri people. I know some of those boot healers. They're
cooking it up.
Quit talking about my people like that, Chris.
Those boot healers. That's funny. That was funny. So Chris, you're constantly chasing stuff. What's stuck in your craw these days? Like, what's getting your goat as far as stories and topics and issues and ag?
Yeah, quite a twist recently, Clint, in all sincerity. Came across a story several years ago and just managed to get it done here a few months ago. Involved four sisters involved in a massive farm fraud. Four sisters that started in their 60s,
Wow.
and then this stretched into their 70s. They were, I guess you'd call them a criminal quartet. And in the night, they managed to steal roughly $10+ million from USDA, U.S. taxpayers. And what had happened was in the 1990s, there was the black farmer suit against USDA. And when that suit triggered off, that was about 20,000 farmers or so that were involved in that suit. It triggered a domino effect. And so
Mm.
you had the women farmer suit that followed, you had the Hispanic farmer suit that followed, and you had the Native American, the Indian farmer suit. So they bang, 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 they're all floating out there. All right. So we're talking tens of thousands of claims. Incredible time at USDA. And so USDA, I guess you'd say, hit the panic button and they put all of these people on a path toward getting roughly maybe 50,000 plus loan forgiveness. It was a mix of different things. And so you had a bottleneck of people. Who's got a sincere claim? Who has a fake claim? You can imagine with tens of thousands of people applying. So what USDA did was they got a company out of off the West Coast called Equip. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, EQ, but it's IP, and it was put on Equip to vet all of the claimants.
Mm.
And the process went haywire. In my opinion, USDA certainly wasn't going to admit that. And so these four sisters, raised up in rice country in central Arkansas, saw an opportunity and they applied for themselves in the suit and then they applied for others. They basically were church women and they got a bunch of their congregants involved. And we're talking, 10 applicants became 20. They had a drive-by process of fake applications. And so it snowballed and it snowballed, reached up to 10 million, 11 million. I don't know the exact total ended up being, but USDA, rather than stick everyone into the spotlight, which would have caused national media would have been forced to cover it. They took the four sisters and put them sort of on the chopping block as somewhat of a sacrifice. So all the people essentially involved with the sisters who claimed to be farmers that were fake, they got to skip, right? They got to bounce, but the four ended up getting sentenced to roughly 2 years apiece in prison, something like that. And they had a couple of other cohorts that also got sentenced. As we speak today, all of the sisters are now out of prison, except I think there's one that's still left in prison. And I think they're supposed to pay restitution of the 10 million, but Lord knows I have no idea if they won't. But talk about a twisted story. Uh,
Yeah.
USDA ended up getting an award for the story feature, and yet they're the ones in the crosshairs. So the question that's always been asked of USDA regarding these uh, discrimination suits is, were any of these employees ever reprimanded? Was anyone fired? You got tens of thousands, yet the biggest civil rights payout in U.S. history, which was something like 4 billion after everything was said and done. I know the numbers sound crazy; they are crazy. So Andrew Breitbart, back 15 years ago, I can't remember what year he died, maybe 2013, something like that, was looking into this. And the question always asked was, did y'all fire anybody? And there's a flip to that, which is, did they get promoted? Did the US
Mm.
did you promote anybody? And of course, USDA hasn't talked there will be books, I mean, books for the decades in front of us written about these cases. And I don't know what will come out, but I do know that what comes out will be ugly. It'll be ugly.
Chris, I know you've covered between this case and crop insurance cases, and I go back to a story you wrote a few years ago where they had taken, was it Piggly Wiggly ice, and dumped it out and said it was hail, and I mean, you've written about these cases quite a bit, but it always seems like it's just really hard uh, to wrangle the fraud, right? To be able to charge or accuse or verify all of it. It's because there's just it's just such a big pot.
Right. I mean, agriculture as a business, $1 billion and $1 billion, however much money you want to tag to it. So logically, human nature, you're always going to have a criminal element involved. That's just the simple math of it. And the problem that we all have, I suppose, in the agricultural sphere is you're dealing with a government agency. Lincoln starts USDA, what, in 1862 with several employees. And now, depending on the year, you've got, roughly 100,000 USDA employees. Numbers that start to boggle the average person's mind. They can't figure it out. They know it smells bad. They just know. We as human beings know this. So you've got all this going on, and when these cases and these repeat cases come up, USDA typically behaves as all other government agencies do, which is to hold up and refuse, right? And when I say refuse, that's what I mean, to speak, to offer up anything on these cases. So you're left with a silence. The silence is deafening. And we see this over and over and over. And you can feel the disconnect between the man or the woman on the street and the bureaucrats in these offices. And unfortunately, doesn't matter the administration that comes in, this is a repeat performance. And on and on.
I feel like we already jumped into our first segment with
No,
that. But let's get into our first segment because I do have questions. Talking tea. Chris, what's unfortunate about that story that you shared is with any of these fraud cases is it gives ag a bad name. It really does give agriculture a bad name. I think about here outside of Kansas City, so in Missouri, a case here that some are following here, but also actually across the country because they're TV stars. But Steve McBee is his name, and they are they're the owners of McBee Farming, but they also have a television show. So they were, farmers who appeared on TV, and he has been accused of crop insurance fraud, and he's pleaded guilty to just one count of crop insurance fraud. But it's people like this that are on television already, that's what people think farming is. And then they get accused of something like this, like crop insurance fraud. And I just feel like, Chris, it gives all of agriculture a bad name. I mean, it's these fraud cases, obviously you find them and there's more out there than we even know about, but it seems like they're kind of few and far between. Yet these are the ones that get picked up sometimes in the mainstream media too. We have some other big ones that I can think of. And it's unfortunate that that's how people view agriculture.
Well, it's true because it's such an important tool for us, Chris. I mean, crop insurance. I mean, it is one of the things that we talk about all the time that, like, in the next farm bill, we need to make sure that this is protected.
This is the system that we have. This is the system that developed since the 1930s. And you can call it good, you can call it bad, you can call it ugly, however you want to do it. But it is, these are the rules set up by the government. And I mean, you're always going to have a bad element at play no matter what. But the best thing to do, in my opinion, is for the government always to be open about it. Just let it dangle. Let's all see it. And, I mean, you talk about in the last few years, agriculture looking bad. Again, just my opinion. But with the IRA money, the Inflation Reduction Act money, that got tossed at USDA, almost dumped on top of USDA. And then the public then read about the programs that number one, they don't understand them. Number two, they can't be understood. Number three, no one's tracking the money. And you start compiling these things. And then, of course, the public has a negative perception of agriculture. But thus it is. Look, if you have a small town, we all know when people drive by and they see the giant grain bins, the bins shine. They're literally shining in the sun. And you've got a tractor outside that costs 400,000 and a picker that costs $1 million. Your public that drives by naturally just points and says, there's another rich farmer. There's another someone abusing the system. And that could not be further from the truth.
Truth, yeah.
Because your vast majority of people out there doing it right.
Mhm.
But those that do wrong, yes, they capture the headlines.
And give the
We all
industry a
know
black
blood
eye.
sells.
And give the industry a black eye. And that's what I think with, somebody like it's the TV show is called The McBee Dynasty, Real American Cowboys. And, we always in agriculture, there's this, we've got to be more transparent. We have to be more transparent. But these are the people then that end up being transparent. And then they're the ones that make headlines for crop insurance fraud. It's some of those, like I said, it just gives the industry a black eye. Okay, but you're not all about fraud, Chris. Let's be fair. You're not all about fraud. Recently, you had a story about this grandiose burial site. And let me tell you, that story is fascinating because it wasn't just a story about this burial site and this guy that really took his wealth and wanted his name to be remembered in that way, but it came with some drama.
The a farm insular by nature. And when you have something that's insular by nature, it produces human pathos, the good and the tragedy. You name it, it's there. And in this case, this was in Georgia. This was a farmer that had fought in the Civil War. He emerged from the Civil War. And while the economy was crashing, he managed to build up quite the farming empire, 10,000 plus acres.
Wow.
And when he got close to the end of life, his wife passed on. He married again a month later, and he told his whole family, by the way, I'm giving everything, which in modern dollars would be tens of millions of dollars. I'm giving everything to the new wife. But the new wife, he gave her a dog leg of a caveat and told her, if you ever remarry when I'm gone, you lose every penny of the inheritance. And then he died a couple of years later, and he wanted, this farmer in Georgia, he wanted to be buried out in the woods, and he wanted 16 tons of granite, 16 tons hauled in, built up around him to memorialize him and his family. And essentially, that's what happened. That the hauling of the granite, the cutting of the granite, the transportation of it by itself is quite the stunning story. But what happened after the abandonment of the cemetery and so on, you could smell that his family must have had quite the distaste for what he had done. And we all have this. We all have these same dynamics and elements, either to bigger or smaller degrees, within our own family. Tyne, in that same area, it was a few years ago that I wrote the story about Miss Jane, and she had grown up in the I believe it was 1820s in Augusta, Georgia. She had the fine life, and she married a farmer slash preacher. And this was during the western settlement of Georgia, and he bought cheap land on the other side of the state and took her essentially to what was the frontier. They carved out a life. They had something like 400 acres, very big at the time. He built her a fine house, 2 giant rooms on the bottom, 2 giant rooms on the top, kitchen and fineries in the back, and they built up quite a life of wealth. She bore him something like 4 children, and there they were in Western Virginia doing quite well. And at some point in this, he told her, hey, the Lord spoke to me, and I'm supposed to be a preacher in Texas. So he told her, we are going to pick up and we're going to Texas, and I'm going to foster churches out there. So essentially, that would have been a wagon train out of Georgia all the way to Texas. And she told him, I'm not going. And they loaded the house. This you can imagine the months it took of planning. They emptied the house. They sold everything, or in the process of selling everything. And when the house was empty, and when the wagons were outside, he was waiting, and she threw down right there. She went up to the upstairs bedroom, and she looked out across those fields that were hers, and she told him, "This, pointing out there, is my Texas." And she took a pistol and put it to her heart and pulled the trigger. And the family subsequently uh, put an obituary in the paper and said that she had suffered from breast cancer in her chest area, which would have been common at the time to cover a suicide. And she was buried right outside that window where she was shot. And that's maybe the saddest part of the tale of Miss Jane was that when she was buried outside that window where she had blown herself away, she remained alone. The kids were never buried there. He was never buried there. He sold the house. He moved on. He was buried somewhere far away. The house today is not there. The remains of the house are there, and her stone cracked on the ground
Mm.
is still there. My point being, uh, this is was American farming life. These same elements are still here, and I don't know
Yeah.
what to say except they're not something you can. It's almost you taste, you feel, you smell them, and they scream out at you. The ghosts are still rattling. That they do.
Yeah.
I absolutely believe that.
Chris, as you write these types of stories, and you obviously you do a lot of historical um, writing, and go back and find pictures and find, you know, things like this
From centuries ago.
from centuries ago. What are your takeaways for modern American ag? I
I'll
mean,
tell you what, Clint, I can take you right back to 1776. When we go back to 1776, something screams out at us immediately, and that is that 90+% of the people in this country, when we are birthed, 90+% of the people in this country are farmers. So when we
right.
go into our founding documents, whether it's the Constitution or the preamble or
Mm,
the Federalist Papers, and we see Adams or we see Jimmy Madison or we see Thomas Jefferson referring to the people, they are referring to a rabble of farmers. And this always, always, always strikes me. So you
mm,
see these blessings of liberty, those who pick up liberty and carry it, 90% are farmers, right? So it's not just a matter of rural people. Everyone at the time and everyone for decades and decades and decades is somehow, some way attached to farming. So certainly it's not that way right now, but
right,
it
right.
was and has been. And that is who we are as an American people. If your mama, right, if your mama from 100, your great grandmother,
I did
even
have a
your great
memo. I don't know
grandmother,
about you,
right?
Time. I did.
If she tells you, "I was raised up here in this town," you think, "Well, I have no attachment to farming. I know what my" listen, your great-grandmother was likely, right? She was likely in a chopping crew, chopping in between the rows on some kind of crop. Might have
Mhm.
picked cotton or, all these things. And those often were the people that were not even farmers. I always say it. Take a historical event and peel it back like an onion. Take the events just around Lincoln's assassination, which is very famous. You'd be stunned, right? Stunned by the amount of it's like a rabbit's warren, and every tunnel connects to agriculture. My point being that you cannot address who we are as Americans, you cannot address liberty, and you cannot address the direction governmentally that this country is going without allowing putting agriculture right smack
Mm.
in the center of the table.
I hadn't thought of it that way, but Clinton, just you and I yesterday were talking about, Secretary Rollins. She mentions Abraham Lincoln a lot. And even we saw the America's First Policy Institute, which she started, came out with a focus just on agriculture this week. And reading some of that, Lincoln was quoted in there as well. And so I just hadn't thought about that, Chris, that theme there and connecting those dots, because she mentions Lincoln a lot.
Hey, Tyne, John Wilkes Booth, right? He puts the ball into the back of Lincoln's head. Booth raised on a farm, all right? Yes, the young man who we assume had pale skin living inside the theater, raised up on a farm. He in his teens, he tries to take the farm over after his daddy dies. Booth understands field work. He understands agriculture. When he puts the bullet into the back of Lincoln's head, right, you could argue, and I do, that you have one farm boy shooting another farm boy. In another life, in another time, they could have sat down together and talked planting, which is absolutely surreal. And
It
you
is.
normally wouldn't come across that in a history book. But when you get down to the dirt underneath their fingernails, it's farm dirt for both of them and for many of the people around them. Absolutely buck wild, just buck wild.
Well, I mean, it is. I like the way that you talked about it being, like rabbit's tunnels, or it's just this common thread, this tapestry that is kind of woven into the kind of the foundation of the nation, and in all of our own histories as well.
Mhm.
And I mean, you can start to go back in generation after generation, and you just start like, it's amazing how many times you're like, oh, farmer, 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 and it's that way in my family. I'm sure it's that way in y'all's, but uh, it, we just don't talk about it as a society right now. Uh,
Mm-mm.
it came up a little bit during COVID. We haven't heard about it in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
One thing I do, you mentioned Rollins. The one thing I do appreciate about her is that she's found a way to make it a relevant topic of conversation, in kind of a mainstream media type of way, which uh, I think benefits America's farmers in a certain way, just kind of puts them in a little more spotlight than what we've had in the last few years. So I'll be interested to see how that pays off, Time.
Yeah. I, it's you mentioned it. She's in the spotlight a lot right now, and there's a lot of questions. But even this weekend with egg prices, I mean, think about how much she was in the spotlight with that. And then I'm reading headlines now that wholesale egg prices or retail egg prices haven't come down like wholesale egg prices, and now we're at a record high, and it's the blame game again. It's like once you stop with the blame game and you take a step back and realize, yeah, we are connected.
We will be right back after a word from our sponsor.
We can't control the weather. We can't affect the global demand for corn and soy. We can't even fix that piece of equipment you swear is still good if you just had the right part. But BASF can offer you 0% financing on our proven, consistent performing fungicides. Our grower finance program is here to help you maximize your yield potential and savings with 0% APR on some of the highest performing fungicides available until March 15th, 2025. Because now more than ever, every dollar counts, and you can't beat 0% financing on innovative corn and soybean fungicides like Revitech fungicide, Revilock fungicide, and Veltima fungicide. Keep more in your wallet while improving your yield potential. Talk to your BASF retailer today about the Grower Finance Program to lock in 0% APR. Subject to credit approval, terms, and conditions. See BASF Grower Finance Program for details. Always read and follow label directions.
Clint or Chris, have either of you done that genealogy, like to figure out what your background is?
I'd like to, Tyne. I have not.
No, you
A
would
little
not like
bit.
to. Chris, you admit it right now. You will not do it because you don't want them to have your DNA.
Hey, you're absolutely right. But I'm convinced that I'm royalty. I'm convinced I'm attached to
Yeah.
royalty.
Royalty of what, Chris? That's
I
the
don't know, but
question.
when I drink coffee, right? When I drink some coffee, my pinky goes up.
Yeah.
I can't help it. It flicks up.
That's exactly right.
The reason I know you won't do that genealogy because my husband won't either. So that's why when you said I want to, I'm like, no, you don't.
Yeah, I mean, no, I get.
Oh my gosh. I'm
And-
convinced I'm royalty. That's the best line
Hey,
ever. Oh my
hey,
gosh.
This year, is it this year? I think, listen, y'all, I think it's this year that if it ain't this year, it's last year, next year, I'm finally going to be removed from the, what is it, the Homeland Terror list, whatever that. My date ends finally after being strapped on there for the past decade.
Why
Wait,
are
stop.
you on the list?
You're on it?
Chris?
Yeah, they put me on there. That dang, I mean, yeah, I think it's about 2014, something like that.
I'm not saying they're wrong. Go on.
I had to go to some meeting. I don't remember what it was, some up north I had to fly to. And so it was in the summertime, and I went to a meeting, and I came back and had to fly again some other next day. So I was in a rush. I just threw my bag down, got new clothes, and grabbed a backpack and dumped it. I shook it out and dumped it.
Okay.
Then
I know where
grabbed
this
some
is going.
clothes and stuffed them in there and took off to the airport. And I get eventually to the Memphis airport, and I'm in line, and the dang TSA, right? Dang TSA went crazy over there at the monitor thing. And I'm just sitting there looking around everybody else. This goes on for like 20 minutes, and the airport section is packed out with people. Nobody's moving, and they're pointing around looking. And then finally, I see one of them push a bag, and it's camo backpack. And I thought, hey, that looks like mine. And so I didn't do nothing. I raised my hand, and they came right to me. And I'm telling y'all straight up, right? You call me a curmudgeon, but it was an old white man. This dude had to be 75. He had to be 75 or 80. And they come around and they go, is that your? I said, that's my backpack. They said there's live bullets in that backpack. And what happened was I had some snake
No,
bullets.
Chris.
I took that pack on the river, so there was some snake bullets I kept hidden in the bottom of the thing. So they said, all right, we're fishing to strip search you. And the security came and everything. And they go, you're going to come back here in this room with us. And I grabbed the post. I said, I ain't going in no room, no way. Why not? I said, so once I get back there, I don't know what y'all are going to do, what you're going to put on me. You're going to strip search me right here in the airport. And so they went and huddled, and they came back and they said, you want to be strip searched? I said, I get naked right here. No way I'm going in that room. And so they they got in huddle again. They came back one more time and said, all right, we won't remove your bottom clothing, but we have to insert our hands in there. I said, whatever, you got permission. So they did that. I was clear. They set me down over there. They took my belt. They kept my belt, all that, because I was going to, strangle myself or whatever. They sat down and got the dang TSA president of something. And then they said he was another guy was the chief of something Memphis. And they came in there and they sat me down, me and the two of them. And the first question they said, y'all, these were 22 rounds, right? 22. And the first question they go, we want to see your permit to have these rounds. And I played it, right? I played it. I said, oh, I don't have a permit. I didn't realize that I needed a permit. Tell me about that. And so they huddled, right? They huddled back and forth, back and forth. Kept me for 4 hours, y'all, 4 hours.
4 hours.
Yeah,
Well, you
4
missed your
hours.
flight.
Then they finally said, hey, you can leave. We're going to fine you. We're going to put you on the Homeland Security list for, I don't remember how many, it's a long time. And they wanted to give me the bullets. They said, we want you to have these bullets, but for you to keep your bullets, you just walk us out to your vehicle. And if you'll open it, we'll put them back in. I said, oh, yeah, all right, y'all keep the dang bullets. And sure enough, when I got home, they sent me a $250 or $500 fine with an official letter saying I was on the list. I mean, come on, y'all, come on. Anyway,
Chris, the only reason I knew where this, I have a lot, and I'm dying because it's supposed to be unscripted, but I think we're gonna have to edit some of that out. Anyway,
Holy crap.
But Chris, the only reason that I knew where this was going, because do you remember that couple from those people from Turks and Caicos, that couple that they
Yeah.
actually they had to stay in Turks and Caicos because they had bullets in their bag. And after that story came out, I said, James, like he all the time takes bags all the time with him hunting. And I'm like, you have got to be careful. You cannot like take the same bag that you go hunting with. But I did not know this. So when is the date? When do you get off the list?
I think that was about in 2013 or 2014. And I think that the penalty was 10 years or something like that. 10, 12. Hey, I
They
tell you right
confiscated
now,
his notepad. He didn't have a pen to write it down.
Hey,
It was
Clinton,
down to his skivvies. He had no
I didn't pay him
to write on.
I did not pay him. I didn't pay him a dang dime. That fine is still floating out there because hey, what's right is right, you know. So anyway,
Chris.
Listen, if our phones are getting tapped, any of us, it's you. So I didn't realize that they had something against you already being on that list.
I also have taken down notes never to travel to the airport with Chris.
Oh my
Chris.
gosh.
Oh my word.
I had no idea. What were we even asking him before we went down that rabbit hole?
I don't know, but that's my
Hey.
what the stigma for this week.
I held that post. I held tight to that post. I would not go in that back room, and ain't happening.
But have you flown since?
I left that room where they had me, and
Yeah.
they said I could get on the plane. So I got on that plane with their nod, and then I came home, and I didn't fly since then. So
So you have not flown since then.
right, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know what would happen if I did.
I think we should try it.
So
I think that's
Yeah. Hey, we're gonna need you to go to Canada next year.
I think that's our next unscripted
because
episode.
you'll be off the list. That's probably
Live from the airport. Oh my gosh.
oh my gosh.
Okay, maybe we do yeah, have we even done I guess we need to go into our next segment. What the Sigma.
Pick one. Yeah, pick
Oh
one.
my gosh. How do you top that?
I don't know. How do you?
How do you top that? Chris, my what the
Confession.
Sigma
somebody has to
confession.
confess to something.
Oh my gosh. I don't know if I can. I mean, I just don't know if any of my confessions would beat that. Okay, my what the Sigma is like well on the radio this morning I was listening to some of the talk radio about the flight of course this week that the ladies that went up into space and back and then saying, you know, it wasn't a flight, it was, you know, all these arguments out there and it's giving science a bad name. You know, all of this. And I see both sides of it. Like, you know, when Katy Perry got out of that, what do you even call that? A shuttle? I
don't know. Does it? It's like a capsule.
A capsule? Okay. When she stepped out of that capsule and kissed the ground, okay, like, gag me with a spoon. You're talking about two astronauts that had
I mean, it's dangerous. You're on a rocket into the.
I
into
guess.
60 miles into space.
I guess. Maybe I would have a little bit more empathy for you if it weren't for the two astronauts that were stuck in space for what, 300 some day. How long were they up there?
Oh, it's like over a year, wasn't it? Or a year or something like that?
Almost
It was
a year.
Forever.
Yeah. Like, and I didn't see them getting out of the capsule in the ocean and kissing the ground. I didn't see pictures of that, you know. So her kissing the ground, I was a little like, ugh. But this argument of, you know, this takes us what is this to children today to realize that, you know, if you want to go on a trip like this, you have to pay for it. I didn't see it that way. To me, I saw it as, you know what, this is an area where maybe privatization makes sense. Maybe we do get further if you know, with privatization versus public funds. Now, I know public funds can do a lot of good. We've seen it on the university level. We've seen it on a research level. It can do a lot of good. But when you think things about the U.S. Postal Service or some of those areas, could they be improved if you actually privatized it versus it being public? I don't know. But I think space is a perfect example of that, because what year was it that we first stepped on the moon, and how much has changed since then, but how much hasn't changed since then. And so if we have these private companies now with their investment, they're able to get the research further, take people up, you know, and have that experience and possibly gain science and gain research from it. Then, you know what, maybe that's when privatization comes into play and that we'll actually get further with that. But that
You
was
know,
kind of my take from it.
I think we've seen this a lot in industry in the U.S. I mean, it was true in the ag industry, right? We had spent a lot of money on public research early on. We started the extension service because we needed to get that information out to help
Which is a
farmers and
great
improve.
service.
Is yeah, to get out and improve the way that we're able to
Mhm.
communicate and farm and grow more food for people, and improve people's lives across the country, and that allowed for more people to move to cities and work in
Yep.
industry, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But but now we've seen more of that research really being done in private, and we talk about public research. Those funds have shrunk over time, uh, it, and so I think there's that whole debate of like, just like space, we've switched to more of a private company. That's even, I mean, those people were rescued by a private company, right? Those NASA astronauts. So we've seen the privatization of space. I expect we'll probably see in other industries as well.
Yeah, I mean, if we can make even greater strides with private investment versus public, I think there are areas, and space may be one of them, that we can do that. Like I said, I'm not debating. We still need, there's a lot of good that can come from these public funds. You look at the extension service, it still does a lot of good. But
Mhm,
in some
mhm.
of these areas, I think you make greater strides with private investment. And I think space is one of those. Do you have any desire to go to space, Chris?
If I just had the money to burn, I shoot, yeah. Everybody'd like to take that ride, absolutely. But as far as those 11 or 12 people, whoever they were, coming down with all those canned responses and so on, that's where they that's where they blew it. Because everybody likes real, and that just didn't seem too dang real.
You
But
Clinton,
know,
would you go?
would I go? I'm gonna. Do I either get the ride or no ride, or do I get the money or the ride?
No, ride or no ride. There's no
Ride
money
or
in
no
this. I
ride?
know I'd
Okay.
take the money too, but no, ride or no ride.
Yeah, because I like, there's a lot of things I could do with the money it would cost to go up. Um,
And it's a free
and
ride. You love free
free
rides.
ride. I don't know.
I know.
And I'm an
Struggling with it
adventurous
too.
person. I don't
Mhm.
know if I care to
I know.
go.
I
There's a lot
know,
of
I
risk, and the
know.
problem is there's a lot of risk there. eh, And maybe that's just me growing up in the '80s with the Challenger shuttle disaster. Like, things go wrong all the time. Like, it is not even though it's a private science, it's not a perfect science.
No.
And you're strapped to basically dynamite that's going to shoot you 250 miles in the air, or however far they went up.
hey, speaking of things going wrong,
60
huh?
miles. I think they went 60 miles.
Speaking of things going wrong, y'all, one of these days I'll tell you a story about the demon possessed farm worker. It's a wild one. I'm talking about like real demon. Wow.
You have not written this yet?
I was there. I mean, I, I seen this fella. I seen him transform. I'm telling you,
That's called drug.
I'm being
I'm pretty sure that's called drugs.
Yeah. That one's called college, Chris. You need to
This guy, this guy
reevaluate what
was
happened
straight
in
up
your life.
Beelzebub. I'm telling you, I saw it in the church
Well, you
house.
can't
I'll
tease
tell
a
you about
story and not tell it. For God's sakes, we
Well,
got
what
10
year
minutes.
was this?
it. Early '80s. Listen, I was a little
That's
kid.
called
I was a little kid. I went into church one night, and they there was all these farm workers. This was when I was a little kid, probably around 10 or 11, living in Arabia, right? And they would bring these farm workers in. They were Egyptian farm workers, peasants, and they would come in robes and the turbans and everything, and the like the gluey jelly slippers, like that. So this fella comes in, right? And I'm coming in, and I meet him, and he's got white eyes, right? His eyes were white. And as a little kid, I jumped back. I said, that's a little unsettling. And so I didn't pay any attention to it. After church house, right after the service was over, like I normally would, I had a few, cents in my pocket, so to speak, ran off to get me some street food, some street bread, got it. And when I came back to the church, there was a big crowd out front, and nobody was going in or out. So I got down on my hands and knees, and I crawled through all these people, and I
Chris,
got
is
to
this a
the
true story? Come on.
heck yeah, it's true. It's true. I
Okay,
got
go
in,
on. All right, go
I
on.
got in
I'm
the door,
asking.
right?
All right,
I
go on.
crawled
It's
in the door of
unscripted.
the sanctuary. I go in the sanctuary and they got this cat, right? He's on the front row seated. Listen, I'm telling you, that's like a real peasant, like straight out of the fields. I'm talking about a peasant like was so backward, they would crack commodes and stuff, right? Because they'd never seen a commode before. And they didn't even know to sit on it. They would mount those commodes with their feet and get on top and
Oh
crack.
yeah, what country is this in?
This was in Jordan right here. This was in
Okay.
Jordan.
Okay.
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 This fellow's in the front row. And some of the preachers, they've got him arms locked in, right? They've got his arms locked in so he can't move. He's on the front row and they're asking him questions. And he's levitating and coming off that dang bench as sure as I'm talking to y'all. And my eyes are wide, right? Nobody can see me because I'm already small. There's no way. And I'm just, perched. And this dude, they ask him his name, and out comes all these animal noises, right? Like dragons and stuff. It's coming out of him. And they would beat him, right? Every time he would give a response, they would smack him. They'd say something, I don't remember the exact words, but it was something in the name of Jesus. And they would smack him and smash him. And then he would bounce back down and then keep going with the exorcism. And they got like halfway through the exorcism. And my mama, right, somehow had been looking for me. I felt that hand in the back of my neck. She ripped me up and pulled me out of there. But that was wildest supernatural experience I've ever seen in my life. I genuinely believe, I think the man was possessed. So it was wild.
Thank you for bringing up your mama, because my next question is, what was your mom like? What were your parents like? Did they ever try to tame you?
They were fantastic. Pretty much the one thing that they did right for me, I'm being serious, is intellectually, I could not keep up. I was not on par with the rest of the kids, except in my ability to read. And so my mama recognized that and just pumped books and massive amounts of literature at me of all kinds. And so I never developed, mathematically, scientifically, but the reading, the ability to collate and ingest, thank the Lord for her. And that's kind of how my story goes. It boils back to mama and handing a kid a book.
Because how many countries did you guys live in?
Just that one really. And you went from Southeast Arkansas to there, back and forth, back and forth.
Because
like
your
that.
parents
So
were what?
my
What did they do for a
parents
living?
my parents were, my daddy was a preacher, missionary, and they were both from Arkansas.
Yeah.
And so that's how we bounce back and forth. So over the years, you certainly encounter um, a heck of a lot of wild things. Years later, I went back right out of college. I went back to Israel and taught history at a school there for a year. And I
Oh, I
lived out
didn't
in
know
this
that.
Arabian village, some
Mm.
far out, and several times got caught up in the dang riots where guys were getting blown away by these 30 cows out of helicopters. And they'll just just buck wild stuff
Oh
over
my
there
gosh.
that I won't go into. But yeah, you see a lot of crazy things.
Well, that is Chris. I mean, I think your life experiences obviously color your perspective in the way that you are able to put it down on paper.
The blessings of liberty, Clinton. That's why we are
Yeah.
in the greatest country in the world. It's not an accident that this is the greatest agricultural culture and society and country in history. Don't tell me that's down to fertile dirt. It's not. It's down to a bunch of families latching on to liberty. It's a bunch of families setting up a system where the government is there only by necessity. At least that's how we started.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
all of these things mesh together, and you see an agriculture just explode like it's never happened before on the planet. Absolutely blessed to be here. Absolutely blessed to work in the agriculture sphere. No, I have no idea what the dirt's like. I do not know how to cut a row, but I recognize the precious nature that is inside those rows and the awesome people that still work those rows. That I
Amen to that.
Yeah,
Amen to that.
absolutely. Well, and I think, Tyne, I mean, I don't know how you feel about it, but that's why I work in this industry. I always tell people, the best parts of this country are found down a dirt road. And, through the years, you go out to cover stories and you always get those directions that you're going to go 3.2 miles out of town. You're going to take a left at the tree that's missing half its trunk. And then you're going to go down to the remnants of a barn. You're going to go 2.1 miles to the right and head north. And, by the time you get there, I mean, I think you find real America in my book. It's
Real
just,
And-
just the best
and-
parts of the country.
But Clinton, those are the directions that you can always find your way back to, right? Like
Yeah.
if you give me those directions to get to your farm, I can guarantee you that if I'm in the middle of nowhere and I'm forced to get back to where you are, I can find you. But if you give an address and put it in my GPS and make me go there, I will not be able to find my way back. Like it's those landmarks that are then just etched in your mind. And you can get back to that. I mean, I've done it before. Like, oh yeah, you don't have to tell me again where you are. I remember. And they're like, that was 5 years ago. Yeah, I still remember the landmarks. Like I'll remember how to get back to you.
Yeah.
That is what makes agriculture so great.
Tyne, there's a topic for your podcast or one of your videos. Is what's the most bizarre, wildest thing you've seen out there in rural America or the rows? You got to come up with some really great responses from people.
They did that on social media one time, and they came up with underwear, and there's different things that they came up with in the middle of their rows.
Well, what do you find in the rows when you're sitting in the tractor? Yeah.
Somebody will say a body. There's been a couple, like there was an Iowa
Oh, I
farmer
know,
that
I
found a
remember that.
body. Yeah, I remember it too. That's like the craziest thing.
We'll let you know,
Well-
Chris. You'll write about it. You'll have to chase that one.
Fascinating, Chris. I did not see the turns that this podcast was going to take this time.
No,
My God.
me either. Me either.
Hey, y'all
It took a
try to
hard
edit it,
left.
slash and burn, edit it however y'all want to. No problem.
There may be a couple
Oh.
places. Oh my gosh. Clinton, before we go, give us how's Colton doing with pitching?
It's good. Yeah. Had a really great game this last week. And so it's just been cold. It's just been terrible weather.
Not
It's been
baseball weather.
Not really great baseball weather. We got rained out all during the 1 week. And so they're just now kind of hitting their stride. So ask me again in 10 days and I'll tell you.
See, that's an Eastern Corn Belt thing because here we've been dry. They've been running hard. It's warm, windy, so it's really drying things out. But it's been warm. Okay, I have a quick update for you. Prom was last weekend.
Oh yeah, how did you do, DJ?
DJ Dynamite was
Yeah.
in the house.
Chris, did you know
well,
Tyne DJ'd her prom?
I
Yeah,
do now.
awesome.
I do now.
Yeah.
well, unfortunately, before we finished, one of the chaperones came up and said, "This is the most participation we've ever had. We would like to book you for next year." And I said, "Listen, I am not a
Wow.
DJ. There's no booking involved.
Wow.
Like I am not a DJ, but I do have a video. to share.
Oh, she right.
Check them out.
Please tell me you're leading the train.
Awesome.
No, that's not even all of them. So at one point, so last year, this is what I was told. Nobody danced. And so I said, I'm not a DJ. They said, I know, but you'll get people involved. And I said, yes, I will. There's no bullying at school, but I will bully you at prom to get you out of your seat on the dance floor. That's what I did. Anyway, I'm telling you, they learned the twist. They learned to do shout. Like we went through all of the oldies. I said, do not pay me. Whatever you would pay a DJ, use that and get gift cards and we'll have dance contests all night. And that's what we did. They had fun all night long. It was a blast. So they have tried to book me for next year. And I just need to decide if this is going to be my second career or not.
I
I got to decide.
Oh my gosh. I go back to what was the thing we had as a kid, Chris, where they would do the dance, was it Soul Train? They would have the dance offs. That was like on every Saturday morning or something.
Heck yeah, Don Cornelius.
You
on
remember
Soul
that?
Train.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
Tyne running the Soul Train there.
Look at
Well,
that.
listen,
I was
these-
Jack Band, all that stuff. Yeah, heck
See,
yeah.
I told them,
Party.
I'm like, you're not going to sit down on your phones all night. Like we are dancing. You are going to get on this dance floor and dance, and don't be afraid of making a fool out of yourself. Like everybody's going to be dancing. No one's good at dancing. Like it'll be anyway. And they all did. I was so proud of them. They did not sit on their phones all night, which is what they had done the year before. They all got on the dance floor, and I said, at this rate, you guys are going to get invited to every single wedding because you're going to be the life of the party.
I'm going to put Clinton on the spot. Clinton,
Chicken
did
dance.
you do the dolphin back in the day?
No, I do the dolphin. This thing across the.
That's called the worm. That is called the worm. That is not the dolphin. You called it
Maybe in Arkansas, it's a dolphin.
That's the dolphin, y'all. Come on.
No, it's dolphin. That is the worm.
Now you got the animals all mixed up. I know.
I've never dolphin, but I've tried to do the worm a few times, and I'm not good at it.
I've heard that called the dolphin. Oh my gosh. If you have ever heard that called the dolphin, please comment, because it's like when Jim Wiesmeyer told us he used to use his iron to make grilled cheese in his dorm room. Never heard that either.
Me either.
Well, it's the dolphin now. It's the dolphin now.
Tell me the dolphin from now on.
Oh gosh. All right. Well,
all right. This has been good.
Yeah. Talk about a rabbit hole for Easter. Chris, thank you for joining us.
No, thank y'all for having me. Absolute privilege. Thank you.
Yeah, Chris, appreciate you being here. And have a great Easter. Happy Easter. And obviously we'll take a few minutes to remember the season, but sure appreciate you joining us on Unscripted, because it's been very unscripted today.
Y'all have a blessed Easter. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye, Chris. I don't know where to start. I
learned so much.
Oh my gosh.
I do every time he's on.
I feel like I was just in the wildest car ride ever. I mean, left turn, right turn, straight, left, right. I mean, it was crazy.
You're on a roller coaster there at Silver Dollar City.
And have not left my seat. That is what it feels like. Yeah, that's fascinating. Hilarious. Oh my gosh.
Awesome.
All right. Well, Clinton, thank you. Easter weekend. I hope everyone enjoys their families. Do you guys host Easter or any family in town?
No, because usually there's so many things happening around.
Yeah,
Easter,
baseball
we
season.
just end up staying put.
Baseball.
So,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but we'll get the kiddos out, take some pictures, enjoy some time. Hopefully there'll be some sunshine. I think it's supposed to rain. But what are you gonna do?
We actually need the rain, so I can't complain. But yeah, we're hosting Easter at our house, and it's supposed to rain. So I hope the skies open just long enough to have the Easter egg hunt outdoors and carry on.
Absolutely. What are you dyeing? Are you dyeing eggs?
Okay, I'm gonna dye eggs, and then there's this new trend.
Uh-huh.
Apparently, it started 3 years ago. I found out, but now with egg prices that are high, and I guess egg prices are high. But it's one of those items, just like milk and eggs, we don't go through a whole carton of eggs, I would say every couple of weeks. So I don't see that as a cost like I've got to cut down on. But still, my husband's in the potato business. So we're going to dye eggs and potatoes. And I think the girls are going to be pissed whenever I get out potatoes. And they're like, what is this? So they just have to try it and realize this is the new trend.
Are they new potatoes, or are you going to russets? You got to peel them first?
No. You're supposed to do the small. You're supposed to do the new potatoes, the small ones.
Okay. Well, you need to bring some pictures with you, and then I'll try to bring some stories and some pictures next time.
I'm going to tell them this is ultra rare. If I tell them anything is ultra rare, if I use that word, they're all in. They're all in. So I'm going to tell them it's ultra rare. Ultra rare. And it's the new TikTok, and they'll be excited. So we're gonna try to dye eggs and potatoes. Easter potatoes, Easter eggs. What more could you want?
Nothing. I mean, that'll do it.
And potatoes,
potatoes won't smell too bad if you lose them in the house for 2 weeks. You know what I mean? They'll smell earthy, but they won't smell.
We better not lose any. And if you use edible dye, you can eat them. Like somebody said they did deviled potatoes, like twice baked potatoes. And then the potatoes were colored. That's fun.
Yeah. I'm not a deviled egg, hard-boiled egg guy. Yes,
I'm not either. I'm not either. No, it's always on the menu at Easter, but it's not mine. It's not my jam.
Not my thing.
Not my jam.
I'm into it. All right, Tyne. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Clinton.
Unscripted.
Unscripted. And until next time.
Thanks for joining us. You can dive into more of Unscripted on Farm Journal's YouTube channel and listen to it anywhere podcasts are found. I'm Clint Griffiths.
And I'm Tyne Morgan. From all of us here at Farm Journal, keep it real as you live your life unscripted.
Unscripted is a production of Farm Journal Studios, where no one grows alone.